Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Sunday for Sunday, November 28th, 2021. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We welcome you back to the program. We've got members of the media, financial services, and academia standing by as we analyze all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more. So sit back, relax, enjoy this episode of BRN Sunday. Well, let's kick things off. We'll look at what has happened or is happening on Capitol Hill. And joining us on the line, they're known as the Legal Eagles, and also David Levine, Kevin Walsh, both are principals with Groom Law Group, an employee benefits law firm based in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, how are you? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jeff. We hope everybody had a great holiday.
Absolutely. All right, let's kick things off. Thanksgiving is the time to be thankful, clearly. I'm thankful for a lot of things. What are you gentlemen thankful for when it comes to retirement plans?
So I'm thankful for a number of things, but, one thing that I'm thankful for is that retirement legislation tends to be bipartisan, and that, retirement policy tends to be bipartisan. And I think we're seeing some of that in the sense that, there's going to be a new head of the Employee Benefit Security Administration, and President Biden has nominated Lisa Gomez. So one thing that I'm thankful for is that she's getting a vote at the committee level next week, which means it'll likely that there will be a confirmed head of the agency, by the end of the year or by the beginning of next year. And I just think it's better policy when agencies have heads. David, is there anything that you're thankful for?
Oh, I'm thankful for a lot of things, Kevin. I am thankful for how the employer-sponsored retirement system has come through the pandemic at this point. There have been a lot. There have been a lot
to be thankful for. We should have led with that. That's a good one, David.
Well, we didn't actually coordinate, Kevin. So, I'm actually giving this from the heart. But but all jokes aside, it seems like every couple of years there is a discussion of the death knell of the retirement system. X is going to destroy healthcare. I'm going broader than retirement. Y is going to destroy the employers providing retirement. But the retirement system has served as a strong backstop with things like hardship distributions, CARES distributions, and everybody working pretty well together between service providers, consultants, advisors, sponsors, of course, to really do things well. And Kevin, I'm thankful for missing participants, but I'll let you talk about that.
Well, I think we can all be thankful when plan fiduciaries and when plan sponsors find participants, because the retirement system really only works if people are found to get the benefits they do. But I'll pivot to a third thing that I'm thankful for. And I'm thankful that, ERISA has robust fiduciary protections, but that, it seems as though in the current iteration of ESG, which, we've got ESG rulemaking that's ongoing, it seems as though the Labor Department is going to relax some of the rules related to record keeping that could have led to footfalls even by the most prudent fiduciaries. So I'm thankful that, some of these more complex record keeping requirements are being relaxed somewhat, assuming that this proposal goes final. So that's something that we can all, be happy about in this holiday season, is it's less paper to keep.
Go ahead, David. Go ahead, David.
And I'm going to give the last thankful for our parts this week. I am thankful for our weekly Eagles segment with Jeff and Kevin, because we make lots of jokes. We try to make for the listeners, and for those of you who have given us feedback, thank you. We're thankful for you as well, of course. And we appreciate the nice compliments you give us sometimes, and for sparing us from the arrows. But at the same time, I'm thankful for this because it's fun to try, as you say, Jeff, to break it all down, talk in English, and have a little bit of fun with something that truthfully can be pretty darn dry.
Typical Eagle, and we're thankful for each other and talk, but we're not thankful for the listeners. I know you squeezed it in at the end there, but I'd have led with thankful for the listeners, because without the listeners, this whole thing wouldn't make any sense. So I'm more thankful for the listeners as far as the Eagles go.
Jeff, I have to restate this. I want to start this segment over. I want to take back. I'm thankful for Jeff and the listeners.
There
Kevin,
you go.
on the other hand, take it or leave it.
Well,
I'm thankful for the listeners and Jeff.
Yeah. Go ahead, guys.
But all jokes aside, thank you, listeners, And thank you for giving us the chance to talk to you every week.
Well, I'm thankful for you being able to break it down. It is meaningful. There's a lot going on. People need to understand the basics. You guys do that. And by the way, I'm thankful that this segment is now over. Gentlemen, great talking with you. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you,
Talk to
Jeff.
you soon, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Jeff.
Let's shift gears, talk about finance, consumer products, technology, you name it, we got it. Joining us on the line, he's the managing editor of The Street. We're talking about Daniel Klein. Dan, welcome back to the program. Great to have you on this morning.
Good morning. That sounds weird, doesn't it, Jeff? You've had to introduce me a couple different ways over the years, but that is the latest one.
Well, it is. But Daniel Klein is still Daniel Klein, and that's what I think our audience, and that's what I like about you. Let's talk about who The Street is before we kind of get into some great stories that you've picked out to kind of analyze. Who exactly or what exactly is The Street?
So it's a time of transition for The Street. The Street was known for sort of one pretty big personality. I'm not going to name him, but I think you know who I mean.
I know exactly who it is.
And that person now works elsewhere. So it is a really interesting time to build a website that's all about the stock market, all about investing, all about what to do with your money, and one that's for everybody, that brings in all generations, that takes these new traders and maybe brings them a little bit over to investing and sort of helps them do the right thing with their money. So it's early days. Right now, it's really just figuring out how to best cover the market. We're a growing news team, so doing a lot of impartial news, and then working with our people over on the subscription side, who are, of course, doing wonderful market products and what you should buy and when and all of that sort of thing. So honestly, I'm just getting my hands around it. I don't actually know the name of everyone who works for me. I promised them I'm working on that. But really exciting opportunity for me to take a brand that a lot of people in the market have heard of and really work with all of the executives to figure out what this is going to be and how it's going to speak to people at a time where I think more people are interested in the stock market than have ever been interested in the stock market.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Robinhood, some of the other brands that are out there getting a lot of people excited. The pandemic did a lot of negative things to people, health and finances, but I think it also helped people get engaged in saving and investing. All right, Dan, let's talk about a couple stories that you picked up. And, just for the audience's benefit, Dan, he's going to bring us the greatest content possible. That's what we ask of all of our great contributors. Dan, one story that you wanted to talk about, a recent GoDaddy breach. GoDaddy is a web hosting platform. What do you have about this?
Yeah, so they had about 1 million accounts breached. And this is not a dig at GoDaddy, because this type of breach is happening all the time. It just felt like to me we should maybe surface that you need to be careful about your accounts. Well, what does that mean? So let's say you have GoDaddy or any of these other brands that have had credit card breaches. Well, you don't necessarily know that it happened. Nobody tells you alert, you've been breached. Like sometimes they do, but usually they don't. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to monitor your credit cards and your debit card. You need to, at least a couple of times a week, just sort of do a quick scan in your accounts and go, wait, did I buy that? And it can be a little bit tricky because sometimes when you buy something online, you think you bought it from someplace, but the actual card processor is someplace else. So look, I've absolutely put a credit card on hold so I could call my bank and say, wait a minute, like, what is this? And then learn, oh, wait, that's that coffee subscription I bought. Like, it's not actually billed to Coffee Source. It's billed to a third party or whatever it is. But you need to be vigilant there because it varies by bank. It varies by account. It varies whether it's a personal or a business account. But you only have a limited amount of time to sort of contest those charges. If it's a business account, it's actually only 2 or 3 days. So if you're a business and you have those accounts, you need to check really regularly. Jeff, you and I both have business accounts. It's something that you need to be on top of. And in general, it's not always somebody takes your credit card number and buys a car, a big screen TV, and spends some noticeable amount. You really want to look out for like $3 charges you're unaware of. Because think about it. How often do you and I know young people do, but Jeff, we're not the youngest people in the world. How often do you pulling out your debit card for like a $3 charge? I know for me, I still have cash for that, though cash is maybe less acceptable these days. So if I see a little charge, I'm really being careful as what it is. And when I used to run the toy store, which at Christmas we did hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, or at least every couple of days. Someone stole our account info and was stealing the equivalent of like $7 a day. And it took us a very long time to figure it out. And it added up to thousands of dollars. So people are, can be very, very clever with this. And you as a consumer need to be careful. You also need to be smart about just basic things. Like, I know it's silly when you cover up your PIN number when you're typing it in at the gas station, but do that. You don't want people to have your PIN number. It becomes very easy. But banks are really good about it if you're on top of it. So it is your responsibility, not the bank's.
Diligence is important. Be aware, regardless of how much money. If you think it's a lot of money, if not a lot of money, everyone is susceptible to scams. Dan, let's change gears and talk about driver's licenses on our iPhones. Where is Apple with making this happen? I guess I'm kind of curious about this one from a data perspective, sharing perspective. But what's the latest?
Well, Apple is going to do this, but they've delayed it a few months. They've delayed it into 2022. And it's going to actually be pretty useful. So Apple is working on deals with airports, with other places where maybe just like pulling your license out of your wallet is a pain. Making it so you'll be able to have a digital license, you'll be able to scan it, and it'll just go smoother. Like, the question to me is, why has this not existed for a decade? Like, I truly don't understand, and I'm not getting into the politics of vaccine cards, but I have to carry my physical vaccine card if I'm going on a cruise ship. This is after I've already uploaded it, and I'm so terrified of losing it. The same thing with my license. Like, if you're flying and you lose your license, it's hard to get on a plane to go home. In fact, it's impossible to get on a plane to go home. I know. I worry about this so much. I got a passport card. So hidden away in my travel bag is a backup piece of identification. So if, God forbid, someone steals my wallet, and that's not the least likely thing to happen when you're in Las Vegas or the Bahamas or the places I regularly go, Apple would be able to kind of shortcut that with having a digital wallet. And look, all the technology exists. It's just sort of getting people used to it, people worried about data fraud. And, look, once stuff is digitized, it can be stolen. But you know how it can be stolen? When it's your physical license. That can be stolen too. So, I don't think this increases security risks. I think it's something that is going to be the norm sooner rather than later. But I do think Apple, it's taking a little bit longer than they expected because they are getting pushback from some of the places and some of the people where they'd want to implement this. But pretty soon, I think the airport process will get better. And Jeff, I don't know about you, but I have Clear. And Clear, I put my 2 fingers on the thing. Mm-hmm. I don't have to show my license. I have to have my boarding pass because sometimes they might ask. But you have to scan it when you come in. But it takes 5 seconds. Apple is working towards those things. And look, we've had lots of theoretical talks about a metaverse and all these magical things we might do in the future. You know what makes sense? Things that make our lives easier in the here and now. And that's something that Apple is doing right away.
Well, Dan, I guess we're going to have to wait and see. Obviously, a lot of technology, a lot of innovation, and disruption change is hard, and you got to kind of bring people along. And I can attest to that just with my own ventures, which are not as large, obviously, as what Apple is considering. Dan Klein of the Street, great to have you on. Congratulations on the new role, and we look forward to having you back again each and every week to bring us the latest and greatest content. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Jeff. And if you could finish texting me your social security number and PIN, I would appreciate that.
It's on its way. That and my bank PIN is on its way. Thanks, Danny.
I'll see you later.
Bye. Welcome back. Now we're going to talk a little real estate and a little travel. Joining us on the line, he's the real estate reporter, and he also covers travel for Dow Jones Market Watch. We're talking to Jacob Peterson. Jacob, great to see you. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So as I alluded in your intro, we're going to talk about a lot of things today. Do you want to hit on travel first? Because, I think we've gotten some COVID warnings from from Africa. So, but what's your take on all this?
Yeah, so on, Thursday, Friday, news came out about a new variant that has emerged in southern Africa. The first cases were seen in Botswana, although it seems like it may have actually come out of South Africa, which is where a few different variants have kind of originated from COVID. And, there's still a lot, I don't want to, fear-monger too much or anything like that. There's still a lot we don't know about this variant, but there are concerns that it is more transmissible than, other variants of COVID. And there are also concerns that, mutations in the virus in this variant, which hasn't been named yet or anything, like it's, there's the Delta variant, the Mu variant, things like that. This doesn't have a name yet. So it has a, signifier, like a long number, but it doesn't have a name yet, although I think the World Health Organization is meeting to possibly give it a name. Anyway, this variant, there's still a lot we don't know about it, but it might evade effectiveness of vaccines. It might render them slightly less effective at preventing COVID. Make it easier to get COVID still if you're already vaccinated. So, there are concerns, and as a result, what we saw Friday morning was a number of European countries quickly clamping down on travel from Southern Africa. It's not clear yet whether the U.S. would do something similar, but Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he signaled that, as we learn more, they may decide to restrict travel from Southern Africa or require people be quarantined after traveling from Southern Africa. And there were reports of I saw on Twitter, people were saying that they were on a flight from South Africa to Netherlands. They had landed, but while they were in the air, the Netherlands ruled that, they were not permitting travel anymore. And those folks were stuck on the tarmac. And, I mentioned that as an example to just, not to scare people too much, but to remind folks of the extra precautions you should take if you are traveling internationally right now. The U.S. in recent weeks had opened up international travel much more extensively, but if you're traveling right now, it's a little dicey, and you and I have talked about this a lot before, but this just drives home. If you're planning a big trip, you want to get travel insurance in case the trip is canceled, to give yourself some protection for any deposits or anything you might lose. But also in events like this, where if you were an American, or I guess America hasn't had a restriction yet. So if you were European and traveling from a vacation in South Africa, in recent weeks, you could find yourself suddenly in a situation where you might not be able to get home very quickly, and you don't want to lose a ton of money on having to extend hotel stays and things like that. So a reminder to us all of the different precautions you should take if you're planning any foreign getaways now.
Yeah, really, really good point. I mean, I think going into this Thanksgiving holiday before this news of this new variant, you and I had talked about rapid testing, making sure that if you're going to go visit family that you were tested, that you have a negative test, right? And you make a really good point. You don't want to overextend yourself financially if you have to stay somewhere. I mean, you really have to watch what's going on, and it is very fluid when it comes to travel, when it comes to going into certain countries, and people need to take that all into account when planning vacations. And by the way, Jacob, we're heading into the flu and respiratory illness season, right? So we still don't know what's to come in these winter months here, both here and across Europe.
Totally, yeah. No, it's and there are lots of concerns that the flu season will be worse this year because a lot of people, it was a pretty easy flu season last year because everyone was masked up. But as we've returned to our more typical lives and fewer people are wearing masks and things like that, I know doctors have been concerned that this flu is going to spread much more rapidly than it has in the past because we kind of are, without a year of, a normal flu season. So also a reminder, get your flu shot. COVID isn't the only thing, like you said, that you can get sick with. So, you don't want to get sick on vacation in general, even if it's not COVID. So, getting your flu shot, doing those sorts of steps to ensure that you're healthy, go a long way.
All right, Jacob, let's transition from travel, and I think all good insights, and actually almost like a PSA. I think we're just doing a PSA really to say, hey, be wary and be aware. Let's talk about real estate, and a lot going on. I think last week or the week prior, the Federal Reserve met. Concern about inflation. I think when you and I last spoke, we talked about how inflation and interest rate rises could impact real estate. But what are you and the team at Dow Jones Market Watch thinking about when it comes to real estate post Thanksgiving?
Yeah. So, so far, the housing market has not yet, shown signs of seriously slowing down. So this week we got the latest existing home sales report for October, because keep in mind that those reports are delayed by a month or so. So we got the latest existing home sales report, and it beat expectations. Economists had expected a slowdown, in large part because there had been a dip in pending home sales, which is kind of the first step before existing home sales, because they measure different things. So pending home sales are like a leading indicator of where existing home sales would go, and that was the pending home sales index had fallen. So they thought existing home sales were going to drop too, but instead they rose, only slightly, but they still rose. And we're on pace for for this full year, we're on pace to see 6 million home sales for the year, which is the first. If that does end up happening, we still have 2 months of data left to check before we determine exactly what the full annual pace of home sales was for 2021. But if that happens, as expected now, that would be the first time since 2006 that there have been that many homes sold in a given year.
Wow.
So it just underscores how much demand there is in the market right now. The good news that we're getting, if you're a buyer, it's still very much a seller's market. Most real estate economists have rolled out their forecasts for 2022 in the past week or so, and those forecasts generally have suggested, things will slow down, but it's not like we're going to see falling prices, at least in most markets. Prices will remain where they are or continue to rise a little bit, but not necessarily at the pace we've seen. And we also have seen, a slowdown in perhaps the number of transactions, but they're still continuing. It's not like we're transitioning into a buyer's market. But, a good thing for buyers is that we are seeing more listings coming on the market. Realtor.com tracks that data, and they the most recent data I saw from them, they talked about how, real estate listings, more sellers are coming into the market, because I think that there is an extent to which the market was almost so fast-paced last year that it scared people. It was so hard to buy a home last year that if you already owned your existing home, you wouldn't necessarily want to sell it, because then your concern was, well, yeah, I'll sell it, but then what can I buy? And I have friends, here in New York who, had that exact type of, or in California, who had that exact type of situation where they, sold the home they lived in, and then ended up renting because they just couldn't find anything to buy. And they didn't just want to buy something that wasn't right for them. They wanted to be able to, buy their dream home. So, the more people who come to the market and list their homes for sale, I think the better. It'll, the inventory situation is still so constrained, and that's one of the main, concerns when it comes to things like affordability is, when there just aren't that many homes for sale, prices rise very rapidly when there's as much demand as there is right now.
Jacob, what about new housing starts? Have we gotten any data there, meaning new construction? Are we seeing, you and I have talked throughout the year about supply chain, failure to get chips, lumber, even copper plumbing pipe has been scarce. Are we seeing, 6 million is a huge number, and you said since 2006, are you seeing new homes increase that might help with capacity?
Totally. So housing starts, continue to rise. Let me pull up the exact data so I'm not talking, out of hand. But in the last month, there were the annual rate of housing starts was 1.52 million, which also represented an increase from September. Again, another situation in which the numbers came in above expectations, which is a good sign. And single family starts were particularly strong. It is the one thing I will say about new home construction. First of all, from a data perspective, it is a little hard sometimes to suss out what's really happening, because the data that the government collects is very, it uses a very small sample. So it's very prone to revisions. And is a little wonky in that sense. There is certainly the demand for new homes in this country right now. The question is, how, can we build them fast enough? We've seen a lot of situations where buyers are purchasing, new home sales have, also, I think, rose or were roughly flat. I was actually out the day that those were released, so I haven't checked the numbers just yet. But, new home sales, a lot of buyers right now are buying homes that haven't been started yet. They're buying, a lot basically in a neighborhood with that a home will go on once the builder can get to it. And that's the situation a lot of builders are facing right now is the lack of, labor, skilled workers who can construct homes, the lack of these building materials at affordable prices. All of that is lengthening out the timeline on home construction projects and driving up the prices. So, it's still a very tough market. And, when you talk to, the National Association of Home Builders, they will warn readily that what we really need to, Build Back Better had a number of, things that were in it that were meant to, boost the supply of homes in this country. But they will say, they will readily say, what we really need is a lot more construction workers. Because, that's, I think, one of the biggest headwinds that builders are facing is they just don't have enough workers to do the number of projects that they would like to do.
Jacob, last question. What does this mean for renters? Are you seeing, as a result, people saying, I'm going to wait, or I can't buy anything, so I have to wait? Rents going up, especially in major cities?
Rents are going up. That is definitively what is happening. They're going up considerably in major cities, but in every part of the country. Where there might be a little bit of a pullback is in some of the, there were a lot of people who rented in major cities and then moved to the suburbs or exurbs last year during the beginning of the pandemic, who didn't buy. I mean, we talk a lot about how people were buying homes in the suburbs, but a lot of people were just going and renting homes in the suburbs. They just wanted to get out of the city. A lot of those people have returned to the city, especially as offices are reopening and things like that. People have flocked back to the city. So, here in New York where I live, I have a lot of friends who locked in these crazy low rents last year that are now facing, if you weren't in a rent-controlled situation, they're facing situations where their rents are skyrocketing, if they try to renew, because, the landlord can get the rates that they got pre-pandemic basically now. That's not true in every city for sure, but, so long as there are a lot of people who would otherwise be buying their first home but can't yet, there's just going to be a massive amount of renters in this country. And you're totally right. The longer that this supply imbalance continues, the higher rents are going to go, and pretty much everyone is going to be in a bind because of that. Because if you're a renter who wants to buy a home, but your rent keeps going up, that whittles away at the amount you can save each month towards a down payment. So yeah. It is definitely a tough situation.
Yeah, and we're running out of time, but one question I was going to follow up with you, maybe you can think about it till next week or the following week, which is, aren't there limitations to how much you can raise rent? I know living in New Jersey, there were some limitations where I lived, but maybe that's not the case in New York. So we'll have to cover that next week. Jacob Peterson, always a pleasure chatting with you, my friend. Great to talk to you about travel and real estate. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Yeah, talk soon.
Bye-bye. And that wraps up this episode of BRN Sunday. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, tech, personal finance, so much more. And you can also subscribe, of course, to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to see the latest content or search for a show on a particular topic? Visit Roku, Amazon, Samsung, and other top streaming and podcast services. We're back again tomorrow, this time for BRN AM. We'll have a very special guest, or guests in this case. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.